When sending us an inquiry, all I'd ask you to do is send us the structural support, basically, of the area that you want the decking to cover. So for floor or roof, if we can have maybe section details of where the floor needs to sit, and if it's a roof, then I need to see the elevation, the pitch of that roof and the height from the floor up to the apex of that roof. Then a plan view of the structure. So usually it's structural engineer drawings or steelwork GAs that we require. We can then run a calc, double check everything according to the structural engineer's calculations. So we get a lot of drawings sent to us. We get whole packages sent to us. We don't need the M&E, we don't need architect drawings. We just need structural engineer drawings to show us the structural support. From small works right the way through to multi-storey buildings. If it's multi-storey, we just need obviously the levels, which generally they're organised in such a fashion, but it is where we can see the orientation of the deck. Usually we see arrows in each bay showing us the span direction, and the engineer, after they've done their calcs, they dictate which way the deck is going to span, and it's the span ends that are the most critical parts that we need to consider. For the bearing end is 50mm on steelwork minimum, and then 75mm for structural timber, concrete, ICF. And ICF is the filling in the sandwich, is the part that we need that 75mm bearing to sit onto. They're usually 150mm width, the concrete filling in the sandwich either side of the EPS board. So, if you just send us details with that in mind, and if you're designing something for small works, to consider the bearing requirements, then that's amazing. Usually it goes centre to the structural support for us, and that will be the dimension that we'll schedule from. And so, the fundamentals are the same throughout. When you're thinking about sending us tender drawings, there are quite a lot of dynamics considered within the balance of what we do. But ultimately, if you follow those rules that I've given you there, then we'll be a lot quicker at tendering for you. You'll have a better understanding of what span direction is and the bearing ends. And when we get to the edges of the deck obviously interlocks side by side, and when you get to the end of the bay, the edges, it's good to have that supported. 20mm is enough for the edges, but to have that supported, it just means that you will reduce grout loss around the edge as well as the ends by just closing that edge off. It does obviously reduce the deflection as well, but we do a set of calcs to check everything, and then we send it back to you to check with your structural engineer for approval. People ask us if we do the floor designs. We do calculations considering the span and the imposed loads, acoustic, thermals, but it all goes back to the structural engineer. It's their PI that's on the line. They have designed the structure support element and the foundations. So the transfer weight that we apply the deck weight to is something that we don't calculate and we aren't responsible for. So we are very helpful with structural engineers. We do all of the work for them in consideration to the deck calcs for roof or for floor. And but it is up to them to assess that information and make sure it's adequate for the structural design that they've put together and the foundations that they've designed as well. Because all of that transfer load, if you think about it, has to be considered in a grand scheme of things, right? So yeah, we'll do a great deal in consideration to design, but the responsibility always falls back to the structural engineer.